Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. This is Hunter and Riley. Say what up, Riley.
Yo, 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 what's up?
We are back doing another Precon upgrade. That is right. We are now in Edge of Eternities. We're exploring space, if you will. Right, Riley?
We are exploring space.
Well, let's see the space that you've explored because this deck is the World Shaper Precon. That's right. It is being helmed by a spacecraft never before seen because they've changed the rules of Magic where now spacecrafts and vehicles can be your commander. But this is the $100 upgrade for the Face Commander, which is the spacecraft. If you guys wanted to check out the backup, that is going to be exclusive on our Patreon for a week. If you guys wanted to go check out that early, link in the description below. Consider subscribing. Otherwise, just stick around right here and you will see it in a week. But, Riley, let's talk about the Face Commander first before we get into all these cool additions. This is Hearthhull. What does it do and what's the direction of the deck?
Hearthhull, the Worldseed, is one, a black, a red, and a green. So we're going to be playing around with John. It is a legendary artifact spacecraft. If you station it for 2 or more, it has the ability that you could pay 1, tap it, sacrifice the land, draw 2 cards, and you can play an additional land on this turn. If you station it for 8 or more, it becomes a 6/7 flying vigilance haste creature with whenever you sacrifice a land, each opponent loses 2 life. So this obviously is a card that cares a lot about us being able to play around with a lot of lands, sacrificing a lot of those lands for additional effect.
Cool. I like the sound of that. Lands Matter is my go-to. I have a Jund Land Matters deck myself, and I'm be curious to see how you've built this one. So, before we get started, I want to remind everybody to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so stay up to date with everything else that we got putting out, because you'll see the backup up here, as well as a $300 upgrade. You don't want to miss out. So, Riley, let's kick it off. Let's start with these first additions. Looks like you threw in some new cards.
Yeah, I really wanted to take advantage of all of these new cards we're going to be getting with Edge of Eternity. So the first group that I'm going to talk about, these are all creatures from the set itself. So the first one here is Icetill Explorer. This is 2 and 2 green. For 4 mana, you get an Insect Scout. It's a 2/4, and it says you can play an additional land on each of your turns. It says you may play lands from your graveyard, and it also has a landfall ability that says whenever a land you control enters, you mill a card. Literally everything on this card is exactly what we want to be doing. Every single line of text here just feeds further back into our deck. So this 100% just pure gas. I love this.
Yeah. This is the only time we've seen this card that have both those lines of text on it at the same time. That is insane.
Yeah, so this really benefits us. I mean, we're going to be sacrificing a lot of our lands in this deck. I still Explorer doesn't care. It just can go and grab those lands and we can put them back into play. And we can grab one of the other lands from our graveyard and put that back into play. So it just makes sure that we have so much more access to what our deck wants to do. Famished Worldsire is up next. This is 5 and 3 green for a creature Leviathan. It is a 0/0 with Ward 3, but it has Devoured Land 3. It says, as this creature enters, you may sacrifice any number of lands, and it enters with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. So if you sacrifice 1 land, it'll come in as a 3/3. But let's be real, you're not going to do that. You're going to sack more. It also says whenever this creature enters, you may look at the top X cards of your library, where X is this creature's power, and put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. This is insane. I know that this costs 8. It's kind of expensive. That's okay. We're a land stack. We're going to ramp our way up there. You're going to drop this, and you're going to sacrifice all of your lands, which our commander wants us to do that anyways. And chances are we're probably just going to grab even more lands than what we just sacrificed, put them directly into play. This thing is gigantic, and it has Ward 3.
Yeah, this card is absolutely busted because let's just say you just get rid of 3 lands, right? You add 9 counters on this thing. You look at the top 9 cards of your library. However many lands you see, they just drop. So this essentially, I feel like is always going to ramp you.
Oh, it will. Like, I mean, I guess, yes, there's the opportunity and the chance that you might whiff on this, but, like, let's be real. This Precon out of the box comes with 42 lands. It's nearly half the deck. You're not gonna hurt on this.
Yeah.
And then lastly from the set, another creature that I wanted to put in here, this one is Might Form Harmonizer. This is 2 and 2 green for 4 mana. You get an Insect Druid. It's a 4/4 with landfall. It says whenever land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. And then it does have a warp of 2 and a green. So if you want to, you can get this down a turn earlier, although that is only temporary. Our commander is relatively sizable in this. It's going to be one of the main ways that we're going to be able to just like close out a game is just via commander damage itself. So being able to potentially double that amount of damage for either that or one of our other big creatures that maybe grow with landfall triggers. Might Form Harmonizer is really cool here. I like this card a lot.
Yeah, this is like we saw Tifa Lockhart. This is basically Tifa Lockhart again. It's pretty wild how quickly, especially in a land matters deck, that your creatures are going to get huge.
Oh yeah, you drop this, you play maybe a land from your graveyard, and if that land happens to be like a fetch, you go crazy.
Yeah, and if Ice Tail Explorer's on the field as well, yikes.
Somebody's dead.
Somebody will die. Let's move on. You've got some non-new creatures. What are these old ones coming in?
Yeah, so sadly can't just stick with Edge of Eternities for all of this. I do have a couple of other creatures here. These ones are from previous sets. The first of which is Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. This is 3 and 2 green for a legendary creature elemental. It's a star, and it says that its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. It also says that non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. So not only does this give you access to additional mana, but now it kind of makes this sacrifice game that you're playing a little bit more interesting where now you can start sacrificing those creatures and it's totally fine. Now, given that this effect only actually impacts creatures that you have in play, so once that forest creature dies, it's only going to be what's actually referenced on the card itself in your graveyard, so do keep that in mind. But this gives you a lot more reach whenever it comes to what you can do with your deck. Plus it also like has the potential to just skyrocket your mana production.
Yeah, Ashaya. This is like an auto include any kind of lands matters deck.
Yep. Plus, cards that say things like destroy target non-land permanent. I love playing against those with Ashaya because all of your things are lands.
Yeah.
So they won't be hit. Elvish Reclaimer is in here. It's a single green mana for a creature elf warrior. It is a 1/2, but it says it gets +2/+2 as long as there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. Very easy to do here. It also has an ability in which you can pay 2, tap it, and sacrifice the land to search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. You just search for whatever land you want. There is no restriction here. You can go find something crazy, have absolutely just like the best time with this. Plus, I like having a little creature in play early that has the potential to just to grow like what this does. That way we can easily station our commander.
This is like a crop rotation stapled on a body. It's fantastic.
Yep. And then the last creature card that we're going to be talking about is Sylvan Safekeeper. This is a single green mana for a creature human wizard. It's a 1/1, and it says that you can sacrifice a land. Target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. Just an added way for you to be able to protect your valuable cards, your valuable creatures, and because you're going to be sacrificing a land to be able to pay for this, it's really not that big of a downside. You could be able to get those lands back and most likely trigger something on your commander. If your commander has been stationed up to 8, it'll drain your opponents for 2 life.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's just a little sack land outlet there that just says, "Hey, I'm protecting my stuff too." That looks like all of the creatures, though. Let's move on to some other permanents. We'll start with an enchantment.
Yeah, so as far as enchantment goes here, I've just got one. This is going to be Valakut Exploration. It is 2 and a red for an enchantment with landfall. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. And at the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with Valakut Exploration, put them into their owner's graveyard. Then Valakut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent. This is kind of an interesting card in that not only does it serve as potential card advantage for us, where we're able to now cast additional things, but if we choose not to, for whatever reason, we can actually start dealing a pretty considerable amount of damage to each of our opponents. So it helps us to close the game out that way.
I absolutely love this card. I've played with it, like I said, in my other Jund Land Matters deck. Surprised this wasn't already included in this precon. It's too good not to throw in.
It's very, very good.
Moving on, we've got a couple of artifacts as well. What are these ones?
Yeah, so we are going back to Edge of Eternities, or at least we're going to reference it for this first card. The first artifact that I threw in here is the End Stone. It is 7 mana. It's a lot. But it's a legendary artifact that says whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. Well, guess what? That's literally everything that our deck is going to be doing. So we're going to be drawing a massive amount of cards off of this. It also says that at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total rounded up. Now, yes, that will keep you at just 20 in a game of Commander. That's totally fine because if your opponent hits you for 19, guess what? At your end step, you just go back up to 20. It makes it to where your opponent has to deal at least 20 damage to you in the course of a single turn in order to kill you.
Table has to work together to kill you because the value off this card of just playing lands, casting spells, drawing cards. We say it in every single video at this point. Card draw wins games. So then
Oh yeah,
starts.
and especially with a card like this and this kind of deck, I mean, just playing through the deck, you're going to be drawing 2, 3, 4, 5 cards per turn. This very quickly takes over.
Definitely.
And then the other artifact that I have is sadly not from Edge of Eternities. It's a little bit older, but this one is Conduit of Worlds. It is 2 and 2 green for an artifact. It says you can play land cards from your graveyard. It also says that you can tap it, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast an additional spell this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So essentially, it just gives us additional access to our graveyard as far as lands go. And then if we have absolutely nothing else going on during our turn, we can recur something.
Yeah, Conduit of Worlds, absolute all star ever since it's been printed. I cannot speak highly more about this card. It's, once again, another auto include into this deck. And finally, I just see one land change. What are we adding?
Yeah, I'm a terrible person, and we're playing a lands deck, so I've got to. I think by just like I think it's a requirement. I'm gonna put Glacial Chasm in this list. It is a land that has a cumulative upkeep of pay 2 life. Don't worry about that. That's flavor text. It also says whenever it comes into play, you'll sacrifice a land. Once again, we don't actually care. That just feeds into what our deck wants to do. It says creatures you control can't attack and prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. That's combat damage and non-combat damage that this is just going to like shut offline. The beautiful thing about our deck is we have so many different ways for us to be able to just like sacrifice lands for effect and then play lands from the graveyard. So we really never have to actually worry about this. This just kind of acts as a continuous fog effect for our opponents where they just can't hit us. And then on our turn, we sack this and we swing.
That's exactly what it is, right? This is just a fog effect that just sticks around over and over and over. You'll just bring it back from the grave. You'll never be paying that 2 life ever, 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 ever. And then, yeah, you just, like you said, you just win.
Yep.
But is that it? Is that all the additions?
That's it. That's going to do it as far as the additions go.
Okay, well, let's get into the part that hurts the deck, right? Because flavor wise, it's very cool out of the box. But you got to make room for all those cool additions. So, starting with some creatures, Riley, what are we cutting?
So this deck, I feel like was so incredibly interesting for me to just like build off of. Typically, whenever we play around with these decks, we try to upgrade them. Some of the cards that really like, I don't know. I feel like it's very like pointed in the direction of the face commander. In this case, the spaceship, but I feel like there are so many wonderful cards that really help to support the alt commander in this, which we'll talk about in another video. Um, so that's kind of the direction that I wanted to focus in. It's just like let's get rid of some of those cards and focus more on the like sacrifice and playing a massive number of lands and being able to station our commander really quickly. So the first creature that we're going to get rid of is Centaur Vinecrasher. This is 3 and a green for a creature plant centaur. It's a 1/1 with trample. It says it enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of lands in all graveyards. It also has an ability that says whenever a land card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you may pay 2 green, and if you do, you just return those back from the graveyard to your hand. This is a cool card. It has the ability to get really big on its own. I'm not really looking to win the game via this route, though, just because the face commander, I know it's a station. It's not always going to be online, but it's a pretty big, beefy body. And one of the ways we're going to try to win this game, at least, is just through combat damage with our commander, trying to hit 21. So this card, although I will say it's pretty cool and it works really well with a backup commander, I just needed to make room, and this got the axe here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jury Master of Review is a black and a red for a legendary creature human shaman. It's a 1/1. It says whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then whenever it dies, it deals that much damage to any target. This is a cool card. I've tried to build this like as a commander in and of itself and just be able to get this thing to work. I just always feel like it's really clunky. You're not really able to set this thing up efficiently. And whenever you do happen to have something that's like it's big enough to actually like really make that impact, this deck doesn't really have a whole lot of ways to be able to like just sacrifice this thing. So you're really going to kind of count on this just kind of being a big dumb beater that if your opponent deals with in some way, you'll be able to hit them. But I just felt like this was a little bit of an odd include. This wants to be more in like a sacrifice creatures deck. That's not quite what we are. And then next up, I have Loamcrafter Fawn. This is 2 and a green for a creature Satyr Druid. It is a 3/3 and says whenever this creature enters, you may discard 1 or more land cards. Whenever you do, you return up to that many target non-land permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. I think this is really cool. I like this. Discarding is kind of where this lost me, though. I want to be sacrificing. And yes, I know ultimately my lands are going to end up in the graveyard regardless, but just because I'm discarding them, I don't know. It feels a little bit weird. It's not super synergistic whenever it comes to the face commander here. So I felt like, you know what, we got to make room for some better cards that work a little bit better.
Yeah, all these cuts make sense so far. I'm seeing the theme of, hey, we're adding better stuff. These cards just aren't as powerful as the stuff we've added. Speaking of which, we got 3 more creatures to cut.
Yeah, 3 more creatures. The first of which is Tireless Tracker. This is 2 and a green for a creature human scout. It's a 3/2 with landfall and says whenever a land you control enters, investigate. That means you make a clue token. It's really cool, and I like card draw and all. It also says whenever you sacrifice a clue, you put a +1/+1 counter on. Ultimately, I don't really actually care about that. This creature's not going to get that big. I guess my main problem with this is that this is a very selfish card in this deck. There are really no like other clue generators. It's really just kind of like this. And our commander has a pretty decent card draw engine already stapled onto it. So I looked at like, do I actually want to be playing around with this and investing my mana to be able to crack the clues, or be able to invest my mana to potentially sacrifice those lands and potentially just like continue our game plan? And that's why this card got cut. Scouring Swarm is a new card, and I really wanted to make this thing work. I don't know. It's like right on the cusp for me. But this is a black and a green for a creature insect. It is a 1/1 with flying and says whenever you sacrifice a land, you create a tapped token that is a copy of this creature if 7 or more land cards are in your graveyard. Otherwise, you create a tapped 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. This is kind of like Scoot Swarm. It's really cool in that regard. I think that ultimately, though, just like playtesting with this deck, I have so many ways for me to be able to grab those lands after I've sacrificed them and put them back into play that I often felt like it was actually kind of difficult to hit that threshold. And yeah, the token production it's cool, but it's actually not really adding to my game plan.
Yeah, I feel like this card in particular, you just kind of want to keep your lands on the field, but also sacrifice them. And if you're having 7 or more lands in the grave, you're not bringing them back as frequent as you want.
Yeah. Up next, we have Mazarick Crawl Death Priest. This is 3, a black and a green for a legendary creature insect shaman. It's a 2/2 with flying and says whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I'm not gonna lie, this is a card that I do actually like. I just prefer this to be built a little bit differently as its own kind of deck. We are very reliant on what our opponents are going to be sacrificing for us to be able to make this thing really big. And this is not a deck that, at least not as of yet, that has a whole lot of like our opponents are sacrificing cards. So it's really cool. I just like this built in a little bit of a different direction.
Yeah, totally understand why all these are being cut. Once again, you add so much cooler things. I'm very excited to see all of the new creatures that you've thrown in. But that is all the creatures. It's time to move on to some non-permanent spells. So we've got an instant, couple sorceries. Talk to me about these ones.
Yeah, so the first card here is Terra Sunder. I'm pretty sure I've complained to Wizards about this card a couple of times. It is 1 and a green for an instant. It has kicker for 1 and a black, and it says exile target artifact or enchantment. If it was kicked, you exile target non-land permanent instead. Its removal at instant speed, but it does also most likely cost you 4 mana. Um, there's just better cards out there. I don't really think this is a deck that we need to be super heavy whenever it comes to single target like spot removal. Terra Sunder is not a card that I'm a big fan of in any deck, so it's gonna get the cut here. Pest Infestation is a card that I really went back and forth on. This is XX and a green for a sorcery. It says destroy up to X target artifacts and or enchantments. Create twice X 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with whenever this creature dies, you gain 1 life. This does have the potential to absolutely just annihilate our opponent's artifacts and enchantments, which is really cool. However, there are games where this card will just sit in your hand and will do absolutely nothing for you, and it just takes up a card slot, and it just feels really, really bad to top deck this. If your opponents aren't super heavy and impactful enchantments and artifacts, I'm not really here for it. I know that this like commander cycle, we're playing up against an artifact heavy deck, so I feel like that was part of the reasoning for the inclusion here, but I just don't see it in most environments. And then lastly, we have Formless Genesis. This is 2 and a green for a kindred sorcery. It's got Shapeshifter. It has Changeling, which means that this card is every kind of creature type. And it also says that you can create an XX colorless Shapeshifter creature token with Changeling and Death Touch, where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. It has Retrace. This is a big dumb beater. We don't care about any specific creature type. I don't really know why this deck or why this card is in the deck aside from that it references the number of lands in our graveyard.
Yeah, I feel like this card at most will give you a 3/3, maybe a 2/2. I don't think you're just keeping that many lands in your grave. Just period.
Yeah, it's weird because it's just like it's one of those things where it's like if we are just blowing up our mana base, and not playing anything from the graveyard, we're probably just hurting ourselves. So like it's better when we're not doing well. Do I want a card like that?
Probably not. But I see why you cut all these. They're just, you want to use your mana elsewhere, and these cards just aren't cutting it for you. But we did see you add Glacial Chasm. What is one land you were taking out?
Um, I don't know whether I'm happy that this card was reprinted in this or confused. No, I'm confused. Why was there a wastes in this deck? There is there's no reason for this. We have other cards that have the potential to make colorless. There's no like big colorless sink that we happen to have in this. We're already a 3-color deck, so we're a little bit stretched here. Like I don't see a payoff for this card.
It's a very weird include. But is that going to do it? Is that your entire upgrade?
That is going to do it. That is my entire upgrade.
Okay, well, we've saw all the prices on the screen for all of your additions. When it comes down to it, this is all pre-order prices. Once again, at the time of recording, what is the total amount of money you spent on all those cards?
Yeah, so like what Hunter just mentioned, there are several cards that I put in here that are part of the set itself. The price has already changed um today. So like please don't get at me in the comments whenever this thing changes even further because you know that it's going to. But this comes up as of right now at $99.91. It'll probably be cheaper
That
by the
is
time you get your hands on it.
perfect. Look at that. That is perfect. You knocked it out of the park with that $100 upgrade. I like it. I like these additions. It seems like a fun deck. But one more question for you before we wrap things up, Riley. Now that you've added to this deck and you've played around with it a little bit, how do you feel about Hearthhull as a whole and kind of what the deck does?
Um I really like Jund lands. I'm a little I don't entirely know how to feel about just spacecrafts in general. I don't think that they have won my heart over. I do think that this precon straight out of the box is really cool, but this is not the card that I'm convinced should be leading it.
Yeah, that's fair. But comment down below. What do you guys feel about this deck upgrade? Did Riley add a card that you were like, oh my god, what a perfect inclusion? Maybe there's a card that Riley cut that you feel like maybe they should change. Always interested to hear you guys' opinions and down there in the comments. But you can also hit that like button if you like this upgrade. Maybe subscribe to the channel so you're staying up to date once we get the $300 upgrade coming out for this deck, as well as the backup 100 and 300 as well. If you wanted to follow us on our other social media accounts, check those links in the description as well as this entire Moxfield list. If you guys wanted to play test it yourself, right there in the description. And on the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. If you guys wanted to check out what they are seeing, which is not here on YouTube, including right now, they're over there hanging out, watching the backup $100 upgrade of this deck. It's early on Patreon. Check the link in the description. Consider subscribing. And a very special shout out to our Gains Indestructible tier, starting with
Aaron Hill,
Aaron Martin,
Brian Ganella,
Daryl Tripp,
Demarion Turner,
Doc Jerome,
Jasminder Pabla,
Jimmy Ward,
Jay Pissel,
Kevo,
Larry Killia,
Samuel Abbott,
Thrifty BSGR,
and William Colombo. You guys are awesome. Appreciate every single one of you. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye-bye.